Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the inaugural Arabian Travel Market Hotel Industry Summit. Thank you for joining us here this afternoon. So we've introduced this event in recognition of the pivotal role that the hotel industry plays in the success of this region's travel and tourism sector. The Middle East has one of the largest and fastest growing pipelines of new hotel properties signed and under construction. And as each destination in the region develops and attracts more visitors from more diverse markets, so new opportunities are arising to roll out new hospitality concepts. At the same time, technology is transforming the way hotel groups interact with their guests, led by big data and artificial intelligence. And distribution models are changing too. For these and so many more reasons, this summit has been entitled Opportunity Knocks. And today, some of the region's leading hospitality industry experts will tell us what opportunities lie ahead in this dynamic industry, where the only constant is change. So our first session today focuses on regional development and investment hotspots. And with us here today, we have a stellar lineup of panelists. I'd like to introduce them to you. So here to my immediate left, we have Christopher Lund, who's the head of hotels for the MENA region at global real estate firm Colliers International. Sitting next to him, we have Louis Aboud, who is the vice president of development for the Middle East at Accor. And then sitting next to him, we have Tim Corden, area senior vice president for the Middle East and Africa, Radisson Hotel Group. And last but certainly by no means least, sitting on the end there, we have Tariq Bishrat, who is the Director of Strategy and Business Development for Marjan Island, Ras Al Khaimah. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to actually hand you over to Chris, who's going to give us a really good overview of where some of the opportunities lie in this region. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So, as mentioned, there's so many trends happening at the moment, not just in the region, but in the hotel industry in particular. So I could spend all day, the whole week, in fact, talking about trends, but I've narrowed it down to 3 trends that we'll talk about. So, the 3 trends that I will talk about. Just trying to get this to work. Next slide, please.
Can we get the next slide?
Can we get the next slide, please? It's not working. Let's try again. Okay, it's working. So the three areas of focus I'll talk about today is first, mid-market resorts. We talk a lot about mid-market hotels in the cities, the 3- and 4-star hotels, but sometimes we forget that there is a specific segment which is the mid-market resorts as well. Then the second one being the lifestyle hotels. I think it's a word that's being overused perhaps these days. And we'll look a bit in particular what it means for hotel developers as well as the guests. And then what we call EWA tourism, which is eco, wellness, agri, and adventure tourism, which is happening a lot in the UAE and Saudi and Oman in the region especially. So we'll go through these 3. The first one being lifestyle hotels. Now, who are they targeting? They're targeting, generally speaking, the younger generations or the ones that are young at heart as well. And these hotels, they come with different requirements by the guests. They don't need huge spaces. They don't need always massive ballrooms. It's generally quite efficient properties with a focus on the public and social spaces rather than having big rooms of 35, 40, 45 square meters. They tend to be smaller. Of course, lifestyle hotels, they can be found at all categories, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, but generally if you compare it to the traditional hotels, they tend to be more efficient on a square meter per key basis. What we've seen as well with the emergence of the co-working spaces such as WeWork that started in the US, now we've seen that hotels have started to adopt this business model as well because it works quite well. In hotels, of course, you have a lot of corporates that don't necessarily have an office in the location that they are. And instead of sitting on an uncomfortable table in the lobby that is too low or too high, or in a couch where you will fall asleep, some hotels now, they have started with the co-working spaces. So you have proper desks that are a plug and play. So you bring your computer, you pay for the space, or you order coffee, tea, and you can use the space and work from there. Then as well, the cheaper construction cost. Now, I don't mean per square meter. Now, what I mean is because they are more efficient, they tend to be more reasonable to develop on a cost per key basis. Going to the next trend, which is the mid-market resorts. Just if you count the number of resort keys there are in the region, there are 55,000 keys in the GCC that are resorts. Only 17% of that are mid-market, so 3 and 4 star out of those resorts. So it's such a small market, yet they are targeting the mass market. So that is a bit of a controversy. Now, what's important for mid-market resorts, number one is accessibility, because if you want to attract the affordable segment, the mass market, you need to be close to airports, you need to be easily accessible. You don't want to be 3 flights and 2 taxi rides and a bus ride away, because then you will dilute the guests that will be able to come to your hotel. The next important thing is the efficiency, again, from a design point of view. You need much smaller land for a mid-market resorts, and you need less area as well, because you can put much more keys on the same footprint and same square meters as you would with a 5-star resort. Then, of course, it's targeting the mass market traveler, which affordability is a key for this segment particularly. The third and last, which is probably the most in vogue at the moment in the region, and you will see it walking around the ATM, is EWA tourism. So again, just to refresh your mind, EWA stands for Eco, Wellness, Agri, and Adventure Tourism. So we see this a lot happening in Ras Al Khaimah, up in the mountains. We see it happening in Hatta, for example, on this picture. We see it happening in Saudi Arabia, in date palm plantations. So there's a lot of such tourism happening at the moment. Now, what characterizes this type of tourism is generally very busy during the weekends and the holidays, because it is very leisure focused. It's mainly tourists. This is not a corporate type of hotel at all. So generally what we do see is the occupancies tend to be on a medium range, while they tend to achieve a higher average rate compared to the city hotels. And because of this being more of a getaway product, they tend to have a slightly shorter length of stay than a typical resort would have. So generally the type of tourist that would come to such a place would be either someone living in a city nearby, going for 2-3 days for an experience or an adventure, or it could be the tourist staying in a beach resort, and they might combine staying 1 week in a beach resort and 2-3 days in a more adventurous, experiential type of travel. Looking at the locations where they are suitable, mid-market resorts, obviously the prime areas where they're suitable is in beach destinations. We've already seen Ras Al Khaimah is a prime destination where mid-market resorts have come up. Then in terms of EWA tourism, obviously you can look at farms, mountains, deserts, basically out of the ordinary type of locations. While the lifestyle hotels tend to be very urban hotels, although you can find them sometimes in resort locations as well. So now, that's it for the initial presentation, and I think we'll continue the discussion, and especially hear from these developers and brands on which lifestyle, EWA, and mid-market resorts they have in their portfolios.
Great, thanks, Chris. You can moderate. You already know. That's wonderful. Really good overview there. Appreciate that. So I think, first of all, it would be good to ask every one of our panelists, of those trends that Christopher presented there, which ones resonate with you and why? We'll start with you, Louis.
Sure. To start with, we mainly have focused over the past 12 months on two of these segments, I would say. We believe that markets such as the UAE mainly or Dubai have reached a level where classic brands have become have overcrowded the market. So we started launching our lifestyle brands when it comes to 25 hours actually that is coming up just across the street from here. A proper, quirky, fun, modern brand. So yes, we believe that markets like Dubai that reach a certain level of maturity are now ready for these modern, different, innovative brands with a big focus on entertainment, big focus on F&B, looking at the different types of design, a friendlier level of service. So lifestyle is a big thing for us as a group and for us here in the region. But we need to be cautious that not everything that has a nice design could be called a lifestyle hotel. Lifestyle hotel is operated very differently than a classic hotel. You need the right expertise, the right understanding of how to run F&B, and we as a large operator admit that we don't know how to do this. This is why in order to bring these concepts to the region, we have acquired brands and concepts where we have allowed their leadership and CEOs to remain in control, to run these hotels and be able to deliver new experiences. And the second point on the mid-market resorts, where we see actually a bit more the opportunity is in the all-inclusive resort. Especially we can see this with the success of our Rixos brand. And we believe that the region, especially Abu Dhabi, Dubai, or even Ras Al Khaimah, have a big demand for all-inclusive propositions.
Fantastic, great. Tim, what about you with Radisson's? What kind of trends that we're discussing resonate with you?
I mean, it's similar to what Lou was saying. We also see opportunities in lifestyle and mid-market resorts. I will come on to the eco-travel, let's say, as well. But just to talk about lifestyle quickly, I mean, lifestyle's been a little bit overused, and I think there's a risk that some consumers are getting a little bit confused.
I was going to ask about that later, okay. Funnily enough.
Sorry to preempt you. When we talk about lifestyle, what it exactly means. And perhaps I'm not the best person to describe what hip or trendy is, but that's what we try and achieve. So it's not the ordinary hotel box. It's something that provokes a reaction. And of course, as Christopher was saying, appeals to, let's say, a millennial mindset or the young at heart. I'd say that carefully, so what I don't want to appeal to is just the younger generation. I think it can appeal to everybody, but just who accept that particular way of doing business or that lifestyle. We're entering Dubai with our Radisson Red brand later this year at Silicon Oasis. And I think that's a great brand that's been incredibly successful for us also in other parts of the world, notably in Cape Town. But it's a brand that we'd be very careful about where we'd place that, because it needs to be of its place and have the right urban surrounding or the right market around it to understand. F&B incredibly important in that brand as well, in any lifestyle or different type of hotel offering we're trying to do, and something that we're passionate about keeping in-house. So we want to retain the complete control of how we do food and beverage, how we curate our offerings, and make sure that we're absolutely right on the quality and we can revise it as often as we want to. So that's something that's really core to our offering with Radisson Red, and I believe others as well. Moving on to mid-market resorts, here, huge opportunity. It's a relatively small part of a big business in the Middle East. And we're entering Marjan Island, which we're looking forward to doing later this year with our Radisson brand, which is a mid-market brand. And I think there's many, many more opportunities across the Middle East for exactly that segment. Yes, all-inclusive, but I think the Middle East generally, and Dubai specifically, or UAE, has reached a point now where we need to be able to attract mass tourism. And that comes with it some growing pains, and we've seen the pressure on price recently, and that asks questions about the efficiency of our operations and so on. But mass tourism has to come with it, with mid-market. So there's going to be a massive growth in mid-market resorts over the next, say, 3 to 5 years, and definitely we want to be part of that.
Okay.
And
Now,
just eco quickly,
Okay.
only because you had it as one of your
Yeah, the
trends.
last, yeah.
We don't have a specific strategy to focus on it, but I think it is something that it's very fast growing, but it's a niche. So it's something we do reactively with the right, let's say, set of circumstances. And there are some great examples of it in the Middle East already, but we don't have a particular philosophy around it at the moment.
Sure. Okay. Now, Tarek, with Marjan Island, so new destination, not like Dubai, which has obviously been established a long time. So really kind of a blank canvas. So how do you kind of decide on the mix and, you know, what you're going to put in there in terms of lifestyle, mid-market resorts, upscale luxury? What's the plan there?
Sure. So just to kind of frame it properly, we are a master developer. So we are the party responsible for developing the island. It's 23 kilometers of coastline. I don't know if everyone's seen it or not. It is fully developed. We have 3 operational hotels, including a Rixos and another Accor property, Marjan, and a Doubletree, and hopefully soon a Radisson opening by the end of the year. We, as the master developer, set the vision, and we align that. As a strategy person, I feel I have to say vision and strategy and all this, but we align our vision and our strategy with RAC tourism, which I think is very important if you are in a destination, to make sure all the KPIs are clear and abundant and are cascading properly. And then from that, we try to fill that mandate. So as we're trying to become we are a global leisure destination, we start envisioning what are the brands and concepts, what do I see on this plot, what do I see on that plot, and then we go and we talk to them. So we're in talks with everyone up here on something. We signed last week a 500-key hotel with Barcelo because we would like the Spanish element to enter Ras Al Khaimah. We signed a Movenpick hotel last year or the year before, which is under construction now. That's 420 keys. And that is with some investors and a small fund that we put together. And that is to help bring Saudis to come enjoy Ras Al Khaimah, because both those elements are not there, and we're trying to spread our wings as far as possible. We have a 450-key Rove that we signed also last year, so we're developing that. A lot of these we develop in partnership with investors and developers who come and approach us, and I think even these hotels are owned by third parties as well. But we try to focus on creating that all well-rounded, something for everyone destination. We don't push luxury 5-star because it gets expensive, obviously, to build something like that. And it's honestly where we don't see the market moving. It is definitely in the mid-market space. And then we try to have a balance between the operators that come and the investors that come and what they want to build, a balance between all-inclusive and mid-market resorts. You don't want too much all-inclusive because that really can hurt the market and becomes very price-sensitive, and tour operators and all of that. But at the same time, we want to have something for everyone. So I think instead of thinking mid-market, I think price point. And when I think price point, I think margin. When I think margin, I think average daily rate. When I think average daily rate, I think room cost to build. So from a developer's perspective, that's my logic. So if I want to charge, I'm just speaking loosely and openly, if I think the market is $200 a night with a occupancy of 75%, that $200 a night, in my mind, I probably can spend $200,000 per key and how do I find the best hotel and operator to fill that? And that becomes the challenge. So then we have to start thinking about the architect and finding genius in design and push towards how do I fit not so many keys, but the right, not too low and not too high. That works from an efficiency perspective. So I can have people feel, in our particular case, something luxurious, but at the end of the day is a mid-market price point.
Yeah.
So it's not like I choose an operator, I choose a hotel. It's like, what's the plot? What's the best thing I can do here? Who are the best architects that can help me do it? And then bring in someone to kind of fill, that entire vision. But
So really, this is kind of talking about an evolution in the hotel industry here, isn't it? The way things are approached. So you're kind of lucky in that respect that you are working from that blank page.
Some people, some investors, they fall in love with a brand, and they want that brand for their plot, wherever the project is, not RAC, not Dubai, it could be Moscow, London, wherever. And some people do it from a pure financial perspective, which maybe they'll just do 3-star or do
Sure.
something else. But from our perspective, we're trying to do a balance where the end user first, the visitor, has a fantastic experience, backed by a developer, an investor who built an amazing hotel that he's going to pay off his hotel in 7-8 years, hopefully, and then an operator who's proud to manage that property. And we have to balance all of that so it works under the mission of the Emirate.
Talking investors, so it was really interesting what Chris said about 55,000 keys in GCC resorts, but only 17%, is that correct, of mid-market resorts at the moment, of those keys, yeah. So has there been a reticence from investors in terms of investing in these type of mid-market resort models? And I'll ask some of the other panelists the same question, but Colliers, what are you noticing there from the investment side of things?
I think the first reason why there hasn't been more development in mid-market resorts is because of the availability of the land, of that particular type of land. Because if you have a land which is ultra prime, huge land with a 500-meter beach private to that plot, that plot will be very, very, very
Premium.
expensive,
Yeah.
and it will be in a very good location. So it doesn't always support then a mid-market resort, because these kind of mid-market resorts, they have specific requirements in terms of plots, in terms of they don't necessarily need the most prime beach. They can have an indirect beach access or close to a beach, which we've seen in some cases in Dubai and in the greater UAE as well. So I think the availability of the land and the availability of these opportunities for the investors, that's been number one. But we're seeing now as, master developers such as Marjan have been doing up until today, is they're understanding what the guests and what the investors require. So they're tailor-making that offering from a master development
providing
point of view.
the right
Exactly.
land at the right price.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Louis?
I think that any market understands the fact that the first entries to a market would be at a luxury level. So let's take Dubai as an example. They started with the Palm, and the majority of the inventory is on a luxury level. Now there are plans, I'm talking only about Dubai, to have the Dira Palm or Dira waterfront, where their intention is to actually develop mid-market resorts. And this is the second stage of an evolution of a market. Now, if you look at a market like Saudi Arabia, that is today focusing at developing their beachfront resort destination, their first projects that we are working on today are all on the luxury level. So I believe it's just a matter of market maturing. It's from a resort perspective. It will start with luxury brands, and then it will evolve into mid-market brands. And just to add a point on your presentation, I believe that a mid-market resort will be very difficult to be accessible because of the price of land that you mentioned earlier for a beachfront resort. We would be very much interested to develop, let's say, a proper mid-market resort somewhere, I would say, between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And we believe there would be a market for it. So it's also to be able to offer the right scenery, even if it's a bit further away.
I think I agree with that point. And accessibility was more from a accessibility of
Airline.
infrastructure, airport, so being able to reach the destination as a whole. But then again, as you're saying, doesn't have to be the first row of resort. It can be slightly further away.
We've learned something with Rixos especially is that a lot of people going to beachfront resorts don't really care about the destination they are going into.
They just want to go to the resort.
Exactly, they're going to the resort. They want to ensure that they have a nice beach where they can swim. So, and they'll spend most of their time in the resort. So as long as you have accessibility from a plane perspective, from an airport perspective, I believe it's a good proposition.
And Louis, I know that Rixos is one of the brands you're looking to, roll out more extensively. What locations have you therefore identified? Because we've talked about availability, price of land. Around the GCC, North Africa. Where are the opportunities for that brand?
Rixos is one of the brands that I believe would drive their own demand. So we're not really keen on or eager to have super prime locations going forward. However, we would need massive plots because all the future Rixoses that you will see will have a minimum of 300 keys. You need enough entertainment, F&B, etc. So we're working on a major development in Bahrain, working on a major development in Doha. We are possibly working on an extension in current properties in the UAE. So I repeat, an all-inclusive or a beachfront resort doesn't have to be super prime if you have the proper entertainment, the proper F&B, and the proper sports activity around it in order to cater to its guests.
So it's basically all-inclusive, entertainment focused. People are going to stay there.
When Rixos opened in Ras Al Khaimah, and I believe you can confirm this, they brought in with them their own charter flights. Because it's tour operators from Russia, from Ukraine, that automatically start chartering in order to cater. And in Abu Dhabi, you see the same issue. The same thing is that it did not eat from the current pie. It actually brought new demand into the market.
Yeah, expanded it. Tim, what are your thoughts in...
Similar, really. I mean, the rise of the mid-market is a symptom of a wider issue of a developing market generally, and a developing economy for that matter. When you look at any hotel market, the usual development stages are luxury goes in first because of the high cost and so on, and then eventually you get to mid-market, and then the final evolution of that tends to be the service department model, which is something that, Saudi's an interesting place because you've got several of those development trends going on in different parts of Saudi at the same time.
It's a much bigger
because it's a much larger territory, obviously. But yeah, I mean, the developing economy attracts, as I said earlier, mass tourism, and if you want to have mass tourism, you need to be able to offer a product that appeals in a mass market, and that's not luxury. So there's obviously an opportunity to then develop mid-market generally and mid-market resorts specifically in this area because what we have here is an excess of sunshine.
Yeah.
As Louis says, the location is sometimes secondary if you can build a facility which caters for all the needs of the customer.
Build it and they will come.
Great swimming pools, great rooms, great F&B, then everything else works out.
Now, you guys have just announced plans to double your portfolio over the next 5 years, is that right?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Now, how much of that will be in the mid-market then?
Well, I think a lot of it. I mean, we brought our mid-market brand Radisson, which has not been operated in Europe, Middle East and Africa previously, and we brought that to EMEA about a year ago, and already more than 20% of our pipeline is represented by that brand. So it's been incredibly successful for us to bring a well-recognized mid-market brand to this part of the world. And yeah, I think absolutely we can double our portfolio in the next 5 years. I mean, we doubled it in about 3 years, in the last 3 years or so. So why not double it again in 5? I think that's a timid target.
Why not? So coming on to the eco-wellness agriculture, when you first said agri, I thought you said angry. I was like, agri, you mean as in agri kind of culture? Is that what you...
Yeah, agriculture.
Yeah, agriculture
so it's
and
connecting
adventure,
the farming and the especially here in the region, date palm plantations that can become part of a resort complex.
Okay. Now, Tariq, do you think there's opportunities for that from Marjan? Would you like to see elements of that built into the destination?
I think we have the benefit of Marjan being very close to Jebel Jais, and in actuality, Ras Al Khaimah is approximately 80 some odd % mountainous, and the government's invested a lot of money in building almost a 40-kilometer road that takes you right to the top of Jebel Jais, which now has the world's longest zip line, and they're building up on the. Someone was just mentioning to me which I knew was in the works, but like a survivor camp where they kind of set you out.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so all of those things don't cost a lot of money to set up, but you get amazing publicity. So as RAC and our differentiator, we like to rely on these things because these things are also not expensive.
Yeah.
So the agriculture, a bike path, a via ferrata, some rock climbing. We don't have to build skyscrapers and huge malls. We'll complement Dubai that has that. So, you know, we would like to think that people are coming to visit the UAE and they're spending time in Abu Dhabi with the culture things there, and Dubai with the shopping and the nightlife, and then ultimately, you know, in RAC to, you know, get some exercise and detox maybe.
I was going to ask you, Louis.
We actually announced during AHIC a partnership with RAC authorities to develop a Mantis property.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Mantis is a brand that we acquired last year, which is a brand that pioneering in what we call preservation in general. So they do eco-friendly resorts, lodges. It's the only brand that is actually available in all continents. We even have a property in Antarctica. So these, and repeating to what you said, it's very niche, and we don't see doubling our portfolio because of this specific segment, but we believe it's a need. It's a need for the guest, and it's a need for some owners. And we believe in a complete portfolio and a proposition. You need to have these types of experiences. So yeah, we're doing one in Ras Al Khaimah that I believe would be a very interesting proposition, very different to what we see currently. And it's a brand that has received a lot of traction in Saudi Arabia as well.
Right, okay.
In areas like Al Ula, where it's also area that were not developed in the past. With the way Saudi is opening today, it's being explored, and we can discuss this later.
Because Al Ula is the big heritage site, isn't it, with the big sandstone rocks? It's UNESCO, I believe.
Absolutely,
yeah.
It's a UNESCO site. They launched the first festival that they call Tantura Festival.
Oh yes, you were involved in that, weren't you?
Absolutely. So we managed all the luxury tents and all the F&B related to that event. And seeing that in Saudi Arabia was really an eye-opener for us, and we believe that there's so much potential going forward. You know, there's so much talks about Saudi and the Vision 2030 and whether all of these plans will be delivered. In this festival in Al Ula, we actually saw the first phase of it, or the first step of it, that made us believe that this is going towards the right direction. And we, as a strong believer in Saudi, we will continue focusing on these unique events. And
I mean, Chris, you see what the investment trends are. In terms of destinations, how heavily is investment now being focused in Saudi compared to the rest of the region? What are the hotspots? What are investors saying, we want to do this, we want to go here?
So looking at the overall region, obviously we cover from Dubai, the Middle East and North Africa. We have several offices as well throughout the region, but from a dealing with investor point of view, at the moment, obviously Saudi Arabia is the main focus. And a lot of that is either directly related to the Vision 2030, or it is private companies, private developers that are seeing the opportunity and the changes happening and want to jump on to the bandwagon and join this progress. So they are part developing with that vision. The second destination that is the most hot at the moment in the region would be Egypt. And Egypt, we kind of see, especially in the past 12 to 18 months, we've seen a resurgence in terms, not just tourism figures and performance of hotels, but from investors. We're seeing the investors coming back. The investors are renovating their hotels that have been perhaps not renovated in the past 10 years. We see new projects coming back online, picking up the pace on new projects, especially in Cairo as the first development, because now the performance of hotels in Cairo is actually better than it was pre-2011.
Yeah.
So that is giving a lot of confidence to the investors.
Yep.
And then we're seeing, of course, UAE, Oman remain key markets. Of course, UAE is very developed already, but still a lot of opportunities in the market, depending on the type of concepts. It's all about developing differentiated products, something different, not just another building next to other buildings, but something that can draw. Something, for example, like the Rixos has done recently with their properties, drawing their own tourists to the market.
New types of tourists coming in.
I believe guests are bored a bit today. If you go to mature markets, if you walk into a lobby of a hotel and I close your eyes and I open them in the lobby, it could be anything.
Could be anywhere.
It could be a Sofitel, it could be a JW, it could be anything. So people are today looking at a real differentiation in experience, in products, and owners understand this, and they are spending the money while the market is not doing extremely well, I would say, in some instances, but they are understanding that there is a need to continually change and evolve their brands, their hotels.
And Tim, I think your development hotspots, they're pretty much what the panel have been talking about on those, what, UAE, Saudi, Egypt, Morocco?
Absolutely. I mean, UAE, I think, is obviously, of those markets, is the most developed market. So we'd look at more strategic locations and specific examples or specific opportunities. But Egypt, I mean, it's bounced back incredibly strongly. The level of FDI, foreign direct investment, that's coming into Egypt now is phenomenal. And you think that a couple of years ago, they were really struggling to import pretty much anything into the country because they had almost no foreign currency. And now, look, I mean, it's bounced back so strongly. So we focus on Egypt for sure. But Saudi remains, for the Middle East, for us, the biggest opportunity. I mean, plus 30 million population, a huge landmass, and yet so many, a massive shortage of branded accommodation. We were talking earlier about the G20 coming to Riyadh and a massive shortage of branded accommodation to service just that one event. And then when you look at the service department business in Saudi Arabia, I think it's 94% unbranded. And that is unrepresentative of pretty much anywhere else in the world. So the scale of opportunities that exist in Saudi Arabia are phenomenal. And we haven't even talked about Vision 2030 or NEOM or any of the other new cities and developments that are happening in Saudi, which of course come with it. When you bring infrastructure, when you bring corporate development and business relocation and so on, you obviously bring hotels.
Yeah.
So there's a huge scale opportunity there.
Yesterday's Saudi summit, we kind of tried to cover as much of that as possible, but I think next year's ATM will be going big on Saudi with all you guys and everyone involved, I think, because like you say, that is like 5 sessions in itself to talk about Vision 2030 and the opportunities it brings for the hotel industry, just that alone, we talked, I think, Chris, you talked about accessibility quickly in your presentation. Tariq, in terms of, obviously, Ras Al Khaimah is not that far from Dubai International or Sharjah, but is accessibility still a problem in terms of, getting people up there? Is that a hindrance to development progress up in Iraq?
Yeah, actually, we're fortunate in that when we built the island and they put it on the closer side to the rest of the UAE. So we're on the border with the neighboring emirate. So we're 50 minutes from Dubai International Airport and about 35 minutes from Sharjah. We have our own airport as well, which is being redeveloped, but not to the scale of the other airports, particularly Dubai. So we feel very fortunate to have such a large, amazing airport, less than an hour, and most of the operators and tour operators and hotel operators, their concern is as long as it's not an hour and a half or less, we're okay. Especially you're speaking to the Club Meds and the others that kind of bring the all-inclusive, that get on a plane and they get off. They really like places like RAC for the sun and the sand, and people are going for their brand. So the accessibility is not an issue for us. If you go the other way and you want to get to the Rixos on the Palm, which is a fabulous property, it takes just as long as getting to Ras Al Khaimah.
In Dubai traffic, can be, yeah.
In traffic and speed bumps and the whole thing. So
It's just perception.
In perception, it's far, but actually, if you go at the right time of day, it takes less than an hour.
Cool. Before I open questions to the floor, which we will do in just a second, just like we said at the beginning, that lifestyle is such a big thing. So, you know, it's what everybody's talking about. Every single major hotel brand is saying, we've got a lifestyle concept, we've got a lifestyle concept, but it is quite confusing. What does it actually mean, and how are all these lifestyle brands going to differentiate themselves? I mean, I think the obvious person to ask first is Louis, because you guys have so many lifestyle brands now. So tell us, how are we going to define them, and how are they going to fit into this market, and we know what they are and who they're for?
Again, I think that to go back to big operators, 800-pound gorillas like an Accor, cannot create, cannot operate, and cannot successfully run lifestyle hotels. This is why we decided that the best way to do it is to acquire successful companies, successful brands, then bring a very unique proposition, a very differentiating proposition, and allow them to continue doing what they're doing while supporting them from a distribution perspective, loyalty perspective, and procurement, and opening door to them to go to new markets such as Dubai. A 25 hours or a mama shelter would have never ventured in a market like Dubai.
Right.
For them, this is so far from home. So we open this door for them to come here. We support them with local understanding. We support them with the right investors in order to develop this. So I believe that I was once told that you cannot put lipstick on a pig and call it a lifestyle hotel. And I think that you can, it's simple.
I like it.
A lifestyle hotel is very straightforward. It needs to have entertainment, F&B, it needs to have the right operation. It's not simply a nice design. So this is what I believe. We'll bring in a very unique proposition because we are not running them, we are not operating them. People that have created these concepts are going to come and create a difference in the market.
So you've got 3 in Dubai come up. You've got SLS,
Absolutely.
You've got Mama Shelter, and you've got 25 hours. What's the difference between all of them?
Absolutely. So first of all, there are 3 very different companies run by very different people. So a guest that stays at an SLS is someone that likes, I would say, very opulent experiences, out of the top arrival, big nightclubs, places that you can be seen and spend money on champagne, etc. This is an SLS. A 25 hours is very different. It's very quirky. It's for a hipster crowd. It's much more affordable, and it caters to someone that's coming to listen to a story in this hotel. A 25 hours is a focus on F&B. Is offering a friendly, chic, French way of looking at a fun hotel. So I believe coming from different market, 25 hours being very German, Mama Shelter being very French, and SBE, SLS being very American, you'll cater to different crowd and bring a different experience.
Yeah, I get it. That's cool. Thank you. That really helps. Tim, what do you think? How are we going to differentiate all these lifestyle brands? How will we know which one's for us? Being young at heart.
I think the success of lifestyle is actually in the experience. A little bit like we're talking with the ecological, agricultural tourism. I mean, that again is the niche there that serves, is creating unique experiences for well-heeled travelers today. Whereas lifestyle hotel brands is about an experience suited to that traveler. So if it's a hipster or whatever, exactly as Louis was saying. But that happens at the hotel. So what I think the success of lifestyle brands is about, you can design something that looks really cool, has a shared public space and all that kind of thing. But if you fill it with ordinary hotel operations teams, they're going to try and operate it in the way that they've operated all their lives and many other hotels. So you need to have a strategy that recruits and trains and has teams delivering a service which probably they've never worked in hospitality before. So you have a personality that's injected in there, which frankly won't suit everybody. And that's probably the realization that we should say about a lifestyle hotel. It's not for absolutely everybody.
No.
It's for the right people.
Yeah, yeah. And like Louis was saying, again, with those partnerships, it's about retaining those personalities. So it's like you say, it's being managed by a different group of people with different staff and, that keep that personality alive.
The thing we're proud of is that we, so far anyway, been very successful in finding those people and attracting them to our industry, often from other businesses. So a lot of F&B specialists, for example, but also from the arts. I remember my last trip to Cape Town in our Radisson Red there. I walked out of the lift into the lobby and the music's absolutely blaring and the general manager standing in a kilt and a sleeveless t-shirt playing ping pong with one of our guests. And that as a snapshot, if you imagine, you put that into a corporate hotel, I mean, that GM's probably having a disciplinary.
Yeah, that's right.
But there, it's perfect, absolutely perfect.
I think that these hotels will also attract a different type of visitors to our part of the world.
So again, it's expanding the market.
So our 25-hour that is being developed here with Dubai World Trade Center, the main message was we want to develop a hotel for guests that do not consider Dubai as a destination. So this is why we really pushed the envelope in order to create a hotel that would be for guests that usually travel to Berlin, that usually looked at hotel as a big shopping mall. But now by having these brands, these F&B concept, they will say, no, Dubai is different. It has this offering.
So it's part of a bigger destination marketing effort. Great. Let's have a couple of questions before we wrap up. Who would like to ask one of our panellists or all of our panellists a question? Hands up. Anybody? Surely we've got one question at least. Yay, there we go. Can we have the mic, please? Thank you.
Firstly, thank you so much for all the insight. So I actually just wanted to get an idea from you, where exactly do we see budget brands going as well? Because we have a lot of upcoming budget brands that we are seeing all over, especially in the Middle East as well. So what's your take on that?
Anyone really can answer that.
Well, for me, budget works with scale. So anywhere where we can have scale, and I don't mean 2 hotels, I mean 20 hotels, that's where we try and deliver one of our budget brands. We don't have what I would call core budget brands at the moment in the Middle East, but we would look at it if we had a partner who we were going to inject scale, because that's the only way it can really work.
I believe we've entered the market a few years back with our IBIS also across and we have approximately 20 IBISes in the region, and we've established it as a leading budget brand. This being said, even budget in this part of the world is called budget. However, it's proper hotels because regulations will force you to go that direction. You need to have a restaurant. You need to have X, Y, and Z. Your room needs to be minimum 18 square meters. So there is, I believe the authorities at this, whether it's DTCM or SCTA, they limit the opportunity to go towards a proper budget 1-star or 2-star hotel, because you will end up building a hotel that is similar to what you currently have at a 3-star level.
Tarek, is there room for budget Marjan or not really, doesn't fit?
Not really.
No.
What I would say is, you mentioned, Chris, about rate per square meter. What we find is, and because of the regulations, parking is parking, concrete is concrete thickness is the same. Floor, a bed is a bed is a specific size. You need to have AC in every room. So in actuality, sometimes when you have smaller rooms, the rate of cost per square meter goes up, because I have a bathroom and but the rooms are tiny, so I have so many more bathrooms on a per square meter basis. But the overall budget is lower because the hotel is just smaller.
Sure.
But on a per square foot or square meter basis, it's higher, and that actually is where I think some of the scale and other things really start to become important. For us, if you're going to spend the same and you have a basement and parking, you might as well find the right concept and move away from labels. So I really think it's about the design and so forth.
That's an interesting point about labels and what we call things, yeah.
Yeah, so when I start thinking also about lifestyle, immediately when I hear that, maybe I'll be the contrarian on the panel, I think risk. I'm like, lifestyle. No, something different. You know, it's like I love the core brands. I love that they're good, they operate. We have a 723 key DoubleTree and a 650 key Rixos that fills up. As an investor, that's great. I don't know if I would want my first hotel to be a lifestyle brand that may be new to the market. So you have to have the right appetite for it.
It has to be in the right place.
It's not for everybody, but it is fresh. It is fun if you want to take that kind of risk or gamble, I guess.
Chris, are investors interested in the budget hotel model here?
Yeah, they are. I mean, coming back to Tim's point, it's definitely about the scale. And that's why there's only a certain number of investors in the region that are looking at this business model. But there are a few that are looking at it. A lot of them in Saudi, especially because if you're a local investor in Saudi, you can easily scale it because there's so many cities. It's a big country.
Yeah.
But then we have some regional players as well that are looking at a GCC-wide or a Middle East-wide basis as well. So there are some of those. But again, it's a X number of investors that can do this type of business model.
Sure. Any other questions before we wrap up? One more. I've got time for one more question, and then we will move on to the next session.
Hi, my name is Rajesh from Hiroti Travels. I just want to find out, Expo 20 coming in next year. So are they going to be like lifestyle brands cater to that, or something similar, or it's just going to be luxury brands for the Expo?
Sorry, was the question?
Regarding the Expo 20 next year, are you guys talking about lifestyle brands? Are you guys be catering for the visitors' own? I know this is going to be business also, but there are going to be leisure people coming for the Expo also. So,
you know, I wouldn't say we have a development strategy around Expo 2020. Expo 2020 is an important event on the calendar of Dubai and a bus stop probably towards a fully developed market in Dubai. So I wouldn't be bringing brands specifically for that because it's a 6-month period and we want a brand with a sustainable future for perhaps 2 decades. What I would say about what we will do differently around the Expo is we may change how we operate in our existing hotels to suit the different profile of the international visitors that we're going to receive. I mean, 25 million people coming, and where those source markets are going to be, maybe we're going to need to look east, and maybe that means we're going to need to change some of the teams in the hotels or how we operate those hotels to suit the needs of those customers when they arrive to Dubai.
Cool, great.
Thank you very much.
Guys, we're going to have to wrap it up there, I'm afraid, because we've got our next session coming on. Please give our panellists a massive round of applause. Thank you.